Welcome back. Joining us now is Will Chamberlain, Senior Counsel at Article 3 Project. A lot happening on the legal front this week, Will, including the fact that the New York bar just disbarred Rudy Giuliani, America's mayor, and a huge legal light. What's your take on this?
Oh, I think it's an abuse of the professional discipline process. Rudy Giuliani was acting as President Trump's lawyer. He was offering him zealous representation. And as a result of that, I mean, Giuliani's not alone. They've been going after John Eastman's bar license. They're going after Jeff Clark's license in D.C. And all of this is really troubling because it's criminalizing the practice of law. These people were making the best arguments they could in terms of, legally. These arguments weren't frivolous. They were colorable. I mean, I don't think they were ever likely to prevail, but they weren't frivolous. There is historical precedent for the things that President Trump was doing and trying to do legally after the election in 2020. So I think it's a real shame.
Recourse does Rudy Giuliani have at this point against the Bar Association here? I mean, this is not a legal entity, this is an association, but it's got an interesting authority across the country for all lawyers. What is his recourse in the state of New York?
I need to look more deeply into this because I haven't read the articles about who actually, enforces this ruling. I assume it is just the bar. But if normally, you would have an appeal to the actual courts. You'd have an appeal to the New York Court of Appeals to get their final say-so if you wanted to.
So he can appeal this. It seems that the entire system is undergoing a bit of a switch right now with the ruling from the Supreme Court just yesterday, granting President Trump basically a longer pass, basically undermining the Democrat Party's mission to tie Trump up. That seems to have pulled a switch, I think, that may have ramifications down the road as these Democrats reconsider their legal warfare against Trump and his allies.
Yeah, I mean, most of the lawfare against President Trump, especially after yesterday, is dead in the water, at least in the short term. In order to get past this new immunity ruling from the Supreme Court, there are going to have to be years of litigation in the lower court to determine which specific acts were official, and then further whether or not the presumptive immunity that the Supreme Court described applies to those particular acts. So, I mean, even if, God forbid, President Trump loses the election in November, he would still not face trial for years while that litigation continued. And then the immunity ruling also obviously impacts the Georgia case. It may impact the Florida case because there's some of that conduct would have occurred while Trump was president. And apparently it's also going to have an impact on whether or not the sentencing in New York happens, because the part of the Supreme Court's ruling was that you can't use the president's official acts as evidence. And there was plenty of that evidence that was used in the New York trial to convict him. So I think in general, the lawfare is in bad shape, but I am still quite worried about, I think we should be worried about what will happen, especially in New York, given how desperate the Democrats might now be in terms of what the sentencing will look like.
Well, in New York, we have a headline that just came out. The Manhattan DA has now said he is, quote, open to extending the deadline. That to me sounds like a concession. That to me sounds like he's going down a path of trying to slowly, quietly walk away from this.
I mean, I think it's a concession that the Trump people at least have a colorable argument. I don't think it's any concession more than that. I think basically what the prosecutors are saying in New York is, we're not going to insist on a sentencing next week, given this ruling and given the motion you apparently want to file. We'll agree that the court should at least hear this motion and give a reasoned opinion on it before sentencing goes forward.
Article 3, you guys are working on some pretty interesting litigation across the country. How's that lawfare going on your side? How's the fight going from your side to theirs?
Well, we file a lot of various professional responsibility complaints and ethics complaints against judges. So those are the two big pieces that we're working on. So, for example, we just recently filed a slew of complaints against Kristen Clark, who is the Assistant Attorney General in charge of civil rights at DOJ. If you recall, Ms. Clark was revealed to have perjured herself in her nomination hearing when she said that she had never been arrested for a serious crime, and when in fact she had actually been arrested previously due to a domestic violence dispute at her home for threatening her then partner with a knife. That was a pretty obvious and clear lie under oath, and as a result, that we've filed now both ethics complaints in in New York and D.C. where she's a member of the bar. We filed a professional responsibility complaint with the DOJ, and there's one other that it just strikes me. I just forgot about it off the top of my head, but there's another complaint that we filed in Kristen Clark's matter, and those will proceed through the system. I mean, we're just starting, so those are going to take time to work their way through, but they're serious complaints that will have to be answered.
Well, it also raises this question of, you guys are doing great work in being watchdogs over this politicization of our justice system. It's horrible. But where are all the other bar complaints against these guys who are committing this kind of warfare, lawfare, against Trump and his allies? Where are those bar complaints? It seems like there would be lines of people filing complaints against Fani Willis, against these people who have been openly shirking their responsibilities as officers of justice.
We've been doing a good amount of it, and also Representative Elise Stefanik has been out at the front filing a bunch of complaints in various cases against some of the prosecutors and judges who have been behaving badly. We hope that more people will join in this effort. Obviously, the more support that goes to the Article 3 project, the more we're able to do on this front as well, because it is ultimately a function of our staffing and bandwidth in terms of the amount of work and we can do and the number of complaints we're able to handle. So that's a very good reason to, if you're interested in seeing more of this, that's a very good reason to donate to the Article 3 project. We do real work, and you can see the results of that when you read the headlines about the complaints that we're filing. But we hope more people join.
How would you explain that process? How would you explain that process to the layman? How would you explain a bar complaint and how long it takes, what it takes to put it together? How does that process work?
I mean, it's not as onerous as normal litigation in the sense that you're basically filing a complaint and then asking hoping that an investigation occurs within the bar, and the bar that kind of takes over from there. But it just requires a certain amount of investigative work on our part to try and compile the complaint and then writing and editing and all that. But that's what's necessary, and it also requires a significant amount of careful fact checking, because when you, as a lawyer, file a bar complaint, you also are attesting yourself to the truth of everything that's in it. So you have to make sure that everything is accurate.
Sure, and with all of this activity, what they're saying is good news for Trump and his allies coming out. How does this affect, in your opinion, the election? Do you think this is a death knell for the Democrat Party, or are they going to go find someone at the last minute and replace Biden?
So I think they would really want to find a new person. That's becoming clear. I think we saw news that the first elected congressman actually just asked for Biden to withdraw. The problem is, I think it's very much like the Ralph Northam situation. I don't think they have the power to force Joe Biden to resign. The delegates are his. He already won all these primary elections. So they need to persuade Joe Biden himself that it is in his interest to resign, and I don't see how it could possibly be in his interest, or in the interest of his family, or in the interest of his close advisors. So I suspect that no matter how much the Democrat, lower-level Democrat officials and the media and all the Democrat commentators are freaking out about Joe Biden's chances after that abysmal debate performance, I don't think they can make him quit. And so I am, cautiously optimistic. I think the polls are turning very heavily in Trump's favor after that debate. And I don't think the Democrats will be able to fix this problem. I don't think there's enough time, and I don't think they can I don't think it's in Joe Biden's interest. And you should generally count on people to follow their incentives.
Will Chamberlain from the Article 3 Project, you guys are doing great work. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Chanel.
Our next guest is investigative journalist Matt Tierman with a bone-chilling story out of Emory University. In these unspeakable times when